let's start off with you. Please have a seat. And why don't you guys move over? Move down one there. There we go. And why don't we? Yeah, you can sit. And your microphone. But why don't we start off with giving us a brief intro of you?
I feel like I'm just going to be repeating my bio now. My name is Yi-Hwa Hanna. I am half Taiwanese, half Lebanese, and American citizen, and I grew up in Dubai actually. Lived here for most of my life, and then moved back to the States for about 8 years, and then have been living back in Dubai now for about 9 years. And I think something a lot of people don't realize about me is that I didn't always know I wanted to be a journalist or a magazine editor. When I finally realized that, I kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. But I actually wanted to be a lawyer before I ended up doing what I do now. And prior to working on women's health, I've worked on magazines like Good Housekeeping, Viva, and a whole lot of other types of magazines. I used to work on some corporate publications as well. So I've got quite a variety when it comes to my background in publishing. I also do a bit of radio and TV and things like that. So I'd like to say maybe broadcast media.
Awesome. Carlin. Oh, there you go. Carlin, you're up.
Okay. I've been in the UAE for the last 7 years. And been a journalist coming up to 30, which makes me quite old. I came here to run Construction Week online, and moved into men's fitness before this. Ran Car and Driver, we launched Car and Driver magazine, and then took over men's health after going back to Construction Week for a bit. So I've got quite a bit of a varied background. Like I say, 30 years in journalism gets you around a bit. And men's health is a lot of fun.
Okay, so we've got two star editors sitting here who are publishing rather interesting magazines that, if you have looked at them, and I will find them in just a second once you start talking, I'll go find them. There is potentially a lot of skin in these magazines, positive skin, but still skin. And I do remember when I moved here in 2000, that typically had a black magic marker line going through it. Where I'd love to kick off the conversation is with really a nuts and bolts chat, and I'll give you both microphones so you can both chime in. But what's the process that you both go through to actually pull together a monthly issue?
For men's health, skin isn't too much of a problem, so I'm going to sidestep this issue a bit. Most people don't have an objection to looking at a half-naked guy. That's why we run them on the cover of the magazine. We make a decision based on the image itself. Okay. So, half-naked men are less objectionable to local sensitivities than maybe a half-naked woman. So for men's health, we're quite lucky in that regard. But we've got to rewind a bit. We publish under a set of rules established by Dubai Media City, I think. But the rules are quite clear, and we have to bear in mind those local sensitivities. So choosing an image for the cover for us comes down to a number of factors, but skin for us is not too much of an issue. Maybe a little bit different for women's health. But.
So Carlin and I has this running joke in the office that when it comes to covers, it's fine and breezy for him, and it's my nightmare every month. It's our nightmare, but also my pride and joy, because for every magazine editor, especially when you work in the kind of magazines that we do, your cover is probably the single most important thing. It's, that expression, don't judge a book by its cover. Unfortunately, it is the case when it comes to a magazine. Someone is going to be walking through a store and they have about like a nanosecond to look at your magazine before they decide this is the one for me. So it's a lot of pressure to put onto one single page in a few words. And so everything that you place on that cover is your first impression. And I can't remember the exact number of seconds, but it does only take that tiny amount of time to make a first impression, and it takes a very long time to be able to change that. And so that's something that we try and bear in mind when we put together the cover. And yes, unfortunately, I won't go on to the feminist rant about the difference between being okay for men and women to be showing different kinds of skin. But I mean, like as Carlin said, it's we have to be wary of the region that we live in, and mostly just be respectful of that. I think anyone who's chosen to live in this part of the world, you understand that there's certain cultural sensitivities that go along with that. And it's just, I always think of it as if it's something that you wouldn't be comfortable wearing in front of your mother, then why is it on there? And it's pretty much the easiest standard that we can use because at the end of the day, everyone is going to be walking around and looking at this. So, I mean, part of our role as a magazine is to try and reach as many people as possible. We want to have as wide of an audience as possible. And so when you're trying to do that, you want to not offend anyone, appeal to as many people as possible. And so you want to bear in mind that not all of your readers will have the exact same views as you. What I choose to do in my personal life isn't necessarily what our readers would think, and that's pretty much one of the first things you lose in like editor school. You learn that it's not about you, it's about your audience. And so you have to bear that in mind when you're looking at what you choose for the cover of a magazine. What may appeal to one woman may alienate another, and that kind of, it goes against our goal of trying to spread the message of whatever content we have in there if you don't reach as many people as possible. And when it comes to skin, unfortunately, it is a little difficult for me because when you go out and you see people on the beach wearing bikinis and tiny little skimpy things like that, or you go into the gym and you see people walking around in sports bras, it is frustrating sometimes because you think, well, how come they can wear that there and, I can't put that onto the cover of my magazine. And I have had many rants about that in my head. But you always remind yourself that it's all a question of context. The same way it's okay to wear a bikini on the beach. You wouldn't wear that in a shopping mall. You would not wear that to the office. And so you can't put that onto the cover of a magazine because someone at Spinny's could be a mom shopping with their kids and they're not necessarily in a position where they're expecting to see someone rip their shirt off and walk around in a sports bra. And so you have to bear that in mind when you choose anything.
Are there, as editors, are there unwritten rules that you tend to abide by, or are the rules of how you decide on that content, is it just sticking with local sensibilities?
I wish I could say there was a more scientific and responsible, methodical approach to it, but honestly, it's just gut instinct most of the time for me. I don't know if that's the best answer. But I think most people don't realize this about me, but I am actually half Arab. My father's Lebanese, and I did grow up in the UAE, so I think that gives me a sort of advantage as a woman who's grown up here, and I've seen this place change throughout the decades, and it does give me a certain awareness when it comes to what is acceptable and what's not. And I've seen the UAE change so much, and the region as a whole, in terms of what is more widely accepted. You just have to be sensitive to that and see what people are responding to. It tends to change every month, and based on what's happening at that time of the year as well. For instance, Ramadan is very different than other times of the year, for instance, because you have to pay attention to cultural sensitivities around that time.
And one of our best covers, the guy had a shirt on. So it doesn't necessarily translate that half-naked guy will sell magazines either. Again, publishing in the UAE is a privilege, not a right. And there are rules in place. You have to self-govern. If you don't self-govern, you just have to. You just have to. And I think, Dubai is a wonderfully cosmopolitan place. We have a lot of people here from different parts of the world, different levels of acceptance and but again, you just have to be sensitive to that.
One of the things that I find really interesting is when I look at your magazines and when I look at getting to know Carlin a little bit, discovering how he puts this together. There's not a huge team behind you. And when I think back to Mary Tyler Moore's show and all those kind of things, so Mr. Grant in the newsroom, and fast forward to 2017, putting together these magazines, you guys, both of you, do pretty much a lot of, if not almost all the work for your local content yourselves, from writing, editing, filming, shooting. Don't forget, you've got to put stuff up on social. How has your job as a journalist/editor changed from when you first started doing this activity? And the follow-up part to that is, would you have ever dreamed that it would be this different?
I'm going to start this one because I'm older. I started in lead type days, and Jonathan's laughing because he knows what that is. The rest of you don't. When they invented the printing press and discovered metal, this is about as far back as we go. The keyboards were even different. The keyboard to the lead set machines they were done in alphabetical order. So you push a button and the letter, an actual metal letter, would filter through. It would be picked up by some lever and it would shuffle down this chute, like well, I was going to say like a video game, but prior to that. And it would shuffle down, and you have an A. And you'd push the next letter, and it would be about this quick. And you take those individual letters and put them on a slate and tie them together. So I've seen my job change from that, and admittedly we only did that in emergencies when the power was out, to now essentially being able to do everything on a mobile phone. So there are a lot of efficiencies with technology that have come. We can do so much more. If we ever had to do video or film, that would take a team. Now you can piece together a show, a minute for Instagram in seconds. So there are a lot of efficiencies that have come through technology. No, I wouldn't have imagined that 27 years ago when I started writing that we'd be doing so much. I wouldn't have imagined the beginning of this year that we would be doing so much, but it changes, and that's the nature of the business, and that's what I like about the business, is that it does change.
Harlan always jokes that I'm a lot younger than him, but yes, even I have seen a lot of changes, but I think that tends to come with the territory. First of all, publishing is notorious for being an industry that is changing at a terrifyingly rapid pace. I mean, I'm not even just talking about social media and bloggers and things like that, but I mean, the world we live in is changing at a very rapid pace, and this goes beyond our industry. It's not just what we do. Obviously, we're very affected by it because the way we receive information and communicate is changing every day. But you have to roll with the times, and regardless of what industry you work in, I think our world is changing. So the way we communicate is the basis of everything we do. It just happens to be more of a highlight on our industry and what we do on a daily basis, but I mean, regardless of what industry you work in, your job is always going to change as the world tends to change. The way people communicate, the way people grow, the way people think, the way society tends to react to things. This is always going to change no matter what it is you do. And in any industry, I think, if you don't roll with the times, pretty much going to become a dinosaur that's extinct. So you have to sort of take the positives with it. I mean, I think there are some things that Carla and I find a little frustrating because I remember this one time that I had an 18-year-old intern. And I felt so embarrassed because I thought I was relatively young until she laughed at me because I picked up my mobile phone and I was listening to a voice note like this, sideways. She said, "What are you doing, Yi-Hwa?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying to listen to the voice note, but I don't want to listen to it out loud and everyone in the office can hear it." She goes, "You idiot, you could just flip the phone up and listen to it like this, like a phone call." And I had wondered this whole time why it goes silent when you tip the phone. And I needed an 18-year-old intern to show me that. And I think you have two choices when you're in a situation like that. You can either think, "Oh my goodness, I am a dinosaur and I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm really old." Or you can think, I can allow the young interns to teach me things that can then translate to other things that I do. I think you can learn something from everything and everyone that you meet. And there are really positive things you can take from every situation. And use these tools to better communicate with your audience, which is, again, the baseline of what we do. You want to spread a message and sort of get more people reading the magazine at the end of the day.
I think there's been a change in reading patterns as well. I think people are switching from long-form content to snappy headlines. I mean, you only need to monitor Facebook. When someone puts up a post about laptop bans on aircraft, won't read into the details of it. They'll just read the headline and react. So I think there's a way that changes what we do. But there are stories that do need that long form content, and I think our challenge is making that engaging enough. So we exercise what we call chunk journalism. We break a subject down into nice, easy to digest bits and pieces, and there's a lot of entry points on the page. So when you look at a feature, it's not just a grey mess of words and one or two pictures. There's a number of entry points and a number of things that you can look at. So I think our attention spans are changing, and we have to, as publishers, bring those kinds of things into the magazine, which makes it a little bit easier to digest and a little bit easier to access.
One of the things we constantly hear is that the printed media, as we see it in the hard copy forms here, it's dying. Especially with the disruption of online, as you said, Facebook, or going through an app. As editors, as writers, as designers, do you think that is becoming more of a reality today, that this might be going the way of the dodo bird?
I'd like to think not. But then we saw vinyl disappear and come back. I'm not saying we're vinyl, but I think we've built a brand through Men's Health, and Men's Health globally has built that through the magazine. They are also building a massive online presence, and there are things that online can do that print simply can't. You can't pick up a magazine and see a video. And for much of what we do, for the workouts, for the nutrition tips, I mean, it's a lot easier to watch a minute video on how to put together your oatmeal in the morning than it is to read through and go, what do I need? And it's something you can carry with you. If you have that information on your mobile phone, then that's great. I don't think print's dying. I think it's having to readdress what it does. But having a magazine in hand, being able to take it on a plane now, being able to store it up. It's not taking up megabytes of space, it's taking up physical space. I think there's a tactility to it, there's a smell to it, it's just a nice thing to create every month. I get a buzz every time we see it come through. But then I like reading it on screen as well. I think it's a tricky question to answer, but what the broader media is giving us a chance to do is expand our brand into different areas. So that's helping.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Carlin there. I mean, to be honest, I am probably biased in the sense that this is what I do for a living, and even outside of that, by nature, I am a bookworm. I've always grown up reading, so if you told me back in the day, even if I didn't do what I did, I'd probably still want to read books. There is something about being able to sit down and turn the pages of a book, and I think every child who's old, maybe not the new kids who grew up with like sort of iPads and things, but at least in my generation, when you grow up and you turn the corner of a page and you go back to that same old folded page, or the edges of the book curl up a little bit, and you just, there are certain memories, and as Carlin said, there's a tactile emotion that's associated with that, and I don't think that will ever go away. I just think that the way we absorb it is going to come across differently. And I also don't think you necessarily need to see social and digital as the enemy. Instead, it's just how you approach it. If you do it in a clever way, then you could actually use it to enhance print media. I think that it's just a question of how you handle it. For instance, as Carlin said, a video. You can have a video of someone preparing how to make this oatmeal, but if you want to sit down and read an article about why that's good for you, or have recipes that you want to be able to cut out or stick in a booklet or keep forever, you don't necessarily want to have that saved on your phone, because at the end of the day, I think we're all guilty of having a lot of digital clutter. So, they can come hand in hand. You just want to make sure that you do it in a way where they complement each other. And that's something that we try really hard to do. And we also happen to be very fortunate in that, we happen to have the type of magazines where people do actually like to buy them and keep them. I mean, I don't think they're just saying this to be nice to me, but I am very proud of the fact that a lot of the time people do come up to me and say, your magazine is one of the only ones I actually like to buy. Because we're not a celebrity gossip magazine that you'll flip through when you're getting your hair done or getting your nails done, for instance. You'll want to buy it and take it home and read meaty articles. You'll want to sort of keep the recipes on hand and take the workouts with you to the gym. I do it as well, because at the end of the day, I don't want to have to click on my phone every 2 seconds while it's like going on hold and I can't see it when I'm at the gym. I want to be able to rip the page out and take it with me to the gym. And things like that. So we're very lucky in that respect. We are also available in the App Store, little plug there. But things like that does help, because you want to just make sure that you take all the different mediums and make sure that you're conveying the information in different ways on all of them. So there's a reason for people to want to see every single different type.
I think it's good. I actually enjoy piecing together the videos we do. And James, he's one of the most prolific bloggers and hashtaggers of our Men's Health Transform thing, and all of the guys, got 2 more boys at the back there beating their faces. But that is generating enough interest online to then hopefully push people to the mag or push people to the other social media channels. So it gives us a chance to do more stuff. A lot of the things that we couldn't do before, a lot of the short stories, a lot of the more instant stories, a lot of the things that don't necessarily make the pages of the magazine, we can get on social media, or we can push through other means. And it just means that we can do more content and spread the brand around.
So what becomes the biggest challenge when you're putting together stories? I'm not talking the legality stuff. I'm just talking the nuts and bolts of doing your job. Finding people, putting that, you might have this great person who looks great and doing great workouts, but then when you sit down and talk to them, it's like talking to a sponge. What are the biggest challenges you face? I mean, you do this every month on month. You've got to come up with those new ideas, that new stuff, that new content. Challenges. What would the top 5 list be?
I think ego is one.
You looked at me when you said that.
I was looking for verification. No, I'm not going to show you my inbox. Oh, got another one. I'm not going to show you my inbox, but I must be 3 or 4 approaches a week by guys who want to be on the cover. It's always been their dream, and that's where we start. And I didn't expect these hecklers to be at the back.
Just pause for a second. If you turn to the back, you can see Jay with the hat on, PT, DXB. You can see Durant, and you can see, of course, David Grant, DJ Extraordinaire. These are my colleagues in the Men's Health Transformation Challenge. Stu Tolan, Channel 4, using the excuse again that he's got to work, why he couldn't be here. Like,
currently on air.
Exactly. What an excuse. He should have been broadcasting live from here. But anyway.
So addressing the ego issue. I think didn't necessarily go straight on from it. Addressing the ego issue. I think if anyone kind of starts with "I want to be on the cover," it's kind of a red flag for me. I still meet with a lot of people. I still have a chat. We kind of sort of go with an initial meeting. There's no one I ever promised to cover to because things happen. I've been in this trade a long time. We know that we can get a shoot done. We shot a guy for the cover specifically 1 month, and we spent a lot of time on the shoot. We got the images back, and we were looking at the cover lines. The cover lines were very, very good, I think. And look, the image and the image just didn't work, and we swapped it out with another image from another shoot, and it just popped, and that was it. So even though we'd gone specifically to shoot this guy in a local gym, we'd lit it the way we wanted to. We'd come up with the lines ahead of time. It's not often you do this. We really planned it out, and it just didn't work. And it was just down to the image. So if I promised him cover, and he was expecting it, and he wasn't on the cover, then it creates an ill feeling and these expectations that you can't match. So we just don't promise that. So that's one red flag.
Let me jump over to you on the go back.
Sorry, I'm dominating this.
Don't mind, but yeah, I'm with Carlin on that. I think ego is a big thing that we have to contend with a lot of the time. I mean, I get a lot of those emails as well. And that actually is another one of the problems that we have, which is I don't think people realize how much information comes flowing through our inboxes every day. I mean, I don't mean to sound like, woe is me, I'm so popular, but honestly, there are so many emails that we get on a daily basis. My inbox is constantly at about 15,800 and something unread emails. I know I'll never be able to answer them. So, I mean, it's not that we're trying to insult people by not getting back to everyone. It's physically impossible. And so, we do have to prioritize when it comes to things that are important. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And we try to, as much as possible, make everyone feel as though their story is equally as important. But at the end of the day, we do have to prioritize. So that can be a bit of a challenge sometimes, I think. And the ego aspect, I think that makes that harder, because when you have certain people that you have to stroke the ego of, and they make what should be a simple task become an extremely difficult job, at the end of the day, sometimes, even though they have a great story, it might not be worth it for us, because it would then mean that we have to sacrifice so many other potential great features that could come along in its place. And so it's a question of trying to balance all of that.
But getting on to a more positive note,
Excellent.
there are a lot of really cool things to talk about too. So we don't ever struggle for content. There's just so much going on.
Is the struggle figuring what not to put in, what doesn't make it through the game?
No, that's never a struggle either. I mean, there's a different way of handling it. If a local PT of the trainer decides that he wants to be on cover, and you go, well, maybe you're not really that important, but we could use you in a shoot, or we could use your advice in a single page exercise, or we can use you to illustrate the workouts at the back of the book, or how do you look after your nutrition? What's your advice there? We can involve people in different ways, but there are enough cool people, there are enough fun people, and enough people that appreciate the opportunity to be involved with a brand like ours. And I'm not trying to sound arrogant. I'm just trying to work with people that make your life easy. And there's enough of them around, and it's not a combative atmosphere. And I keep coming back to the transformation piece. You boys are just, it's that kind of atmosphere. We want to have fun. This is work, but it shouldn't feel like it. This is, at the core of our brand is fun, and if you're making exercise and nutrition out to be something that's horrible to do, then it will translate through in your content.
Yeah, I mean, touching on what you both said, I think we mentioned earlier about how we go out there and get stories. I mean, Carlin and I are both very fortunate in the sense that we happen to be working on magazines that are actually reflective of our personal lifestyles as well. It does make it a lot easier. For instance, on the weekends, I'm always out doing something active. I do spend a lot of time in the gyms, and so I do happen to meet a lot of people that would be great for the magazine in my personal life as well. And it does make that crossover easier, especially when you don't have a massive team, but that is part of it. You have to go out and stay on the pulse. It's one of the reasons why I always joke that I could never work on a celebrity gossip magazine, because I really couldn't care less about who's dating who. I don't even know how these people are. I don't have cable, so I don't watch TV, so I would be awful as an editor of a celebrity magazine, because the work required for me to stay in tune with what is actually going on out there would be pretty immense. So we're very lucky in that sense. I don't know if this is working or not. If I need if it's working, I can just speak really loud. Yeah, we meet a lot of interesting people out there, and like Carlin said, it's a question of finding the right place for them. We always try and stay open-minded, so I think saying no flat out is never a good idea. If you meet someone who's got, just listen to what they have to say if you can, and we try our best to do that as much as possible. I mean, even though we may not respond all the time, I do try and read as many emails as possible that come in through my inbox. I may not always answer them immediately, but I do always file them away. And we do sort of make notes and keep people in mind for situations down the line that could be a good fit as well. So that's some of the movie.
But you do have to have a reason to run a story. It's not just because I want it. And I think there are some people that just because they say they want it or they think they can pay for it, they can have it. And that's not the case. We've got brand values to uphold ourselves, and that's just simply it.
Yeah, I think that's another really important part of it as well. I mean, given the fact that we're very passionate about what we do, it is very important to us, the message that we send. I mean, our magazines, part of what we do is to inspire and send a positive message. And, you know, it is very important to us that the people that we feature do go along those same lines. We do have to vet everyone to a certain extent, because they are, in a sense, ambassadors of the magazine when you're featuring them in there. And so, you know, I mean, if someone comes to me and says, I'd like to be a potential cover story for you, I always want to know why. What message do you have to send? What is it about you that makes you so special, that's worthy of a cover? And I don't mean that in an aggressive sense. It's, what message would you like to give people? What story do you have that could inspire someone? What could you teach someone else? Why do you think that your message needs to be heard? And that's really important to us, not just because of the brand values, but also personal values when it comes to the kind of magazines that we want to run. I mean, there's a certain level of self-respect there that you have to come along with that. And you know, I mean, we do work for the most well-respected publishing company in the entire region, so we have to uphold the values and the standards that we work through on a daily basis. So yeah, we just want to make sure that we pick the best of the best and make sure people have the right message.
I've been catering to my own ability and my own curiosity, asking a whole bunch of questions. Does anyone here have a question they'd like to ask?
Hi. You started by talking about the cover, the importance of the cover of the magazine. Now, I go to space like most of us, and I look at the magazine's rack, and I scan through these magazines, and I tend to kind of avoid them, because to me, the picture on the cover is about a guy who goes to the gym, who pumps, who's there to really make himself look good. For the first time today, I actually bothered to look at what the headings are and look inside. I have bad back, and suddenly I can relate to that. How do you, and had I not come here today, I still would be avoiding them. How do you go about balancing that kind of the picture of the macho with real and relevant and useful content that you have in the magazine?
over the last, well, since Men's Health launched in the late 80s, I think it was 89, it launched. That's the pattern they established in putting somebody who represents the best values of a men's health kind of figure on the cover. A man with a bad back on the cover probably wouldn't sell as many issues as a well-cut South African model on the beach. But bad backs are a big issue. Sleep's an issue. Nutrition's an issue. And these are subjects we cover in the mag. But we also try to put some sort of hierarchy on the cover with the lines. And you can't cover everything with one issue. With one photo. But that's the job of the cover lines, is to try and draw you in. Now, we could have probably put that a bit more prominently on the cover to draw people in. But we balance our content. We always touch on our 7 main sort of tenets, and how we display that on the cover is the constant challenge. We do that. We try to do that every month. It's not an easy thing to do, especially. I mean, the other main cover line on here is drop 10 kilos. I'm sure that there's plenty of people that could do that. Probably just as many people with an extra 10 kilos have a bad back. But yes, I mean, it's just a matter of putting that cover together a bit better, I think.
We have a question in the back.
Good morning. As mass communication researcher, when it comes to the issue of magazines, it always comes to my mind. It's not my area, but there's a lot of research about body image, and especially for young women, and and how it relates to the magazines. Professor Jean Kilbourne has a series out called "Killing Us Softly," where she talks about the issues with media and gender in advertising, but it's also just in general in the media, and somehow it ends up being a lot about with magazines. So have you read any of that research? Are you aware of it? Is it in the back of your mind, the kinds of images that are going in there, and how this would affect the more impressionable youths within society?
Yes, actually, I haven't read that particular piece of research, but it is something that's on my mind every day. It's actually, funnily enough, when we walked in here today, Carlin said if any questions come about that, it's probably something I will want to talk about, because I am very passionate about it. I hear it all the time. Women's magazines, glossy magazines, are responsible for a terrible body image, and they're sort of bashing our confidence. And I've seen those things online where they show you all the different magazines saying, oh, lose weight, you look terrible, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, losing weight has become demonized. It's not necessarily a bad thing. If somebody needs to for the improvement of their health, that's fine. It's just a question of how you portray it. And body image is personally very important to me. Funnily enough, when I actually started this job, I had heard some people gossip, the sort of mean girl sets. People looked at me and said, does she even work out? Well, first of all, I'm a journalist, so it's not my job to work out, but I'm not a personal trainer, but I actually do. And why did they say that? Because they were looking at me, judging me a certain way. Now, I don't have a six-pack, and I probably never will, because I love croissants. But, I'm very aware of that. Also, I do have certain health issues that would stop me from getting that without a lot of hard work. I have a very high-stress job that works long hours, and these are situations that I know a lot of other people are in, and we have to be able to relate to that, and they can relate to us. We are talking to the average girl, and in talking about the cover, we want to put something on the cover that strikes the right balance between aspirational. So when you look at that, you think, well, I could be like that. I could achieve that too. And that's part of the reason why we want to show amazing abs or great bodies on the cover, because you can actually achieve that too. And we try and use a language to show people how you can get that. It's very difficult with a few words and on one piece of paper. But it is very important to us. And one perfect example is our most recent cover of our March issue. And we had Jamie Green, she's a locally based athlete on the cover. And we used, yes, exactly, that one. And I had a lot of comments about this before I put her on the cover, because there is a stereotype that the CrossFit athlete is overly muscular and women don't want to look like that. And I think it's an unfairly broad statement to say that women, as a blanket statement, don't want to look like that. You don't know that. And in the modern day, every woman is different. And it's something I'm personally very passionate about. As a brand, globally, women's health no longer uses the expression like bikini body and things like that. Because, to be honest, they're very outdated. We used to back in the day, but things change. And like I said before, you have to roll with the times. So we no longer use expressions like that. Perhaps there are other magazines out there that might want to continue with that, and that's their call. But especially as a magazine that focuses so much on the body and aesthetics in that sense, it's really important to us to promote a healthy idea about what health and fitness is about. Personally, I always try to remind people that health is not just about the way you look. Yes, obviously that's part of it. It's going to show after a certain point, but mental health is a very important part to us as well. Energy, stress, getting the right amount of sleep, nutrition. And so, for instance, we had this page in the magazine. I actually can't even remember what it used to be called. This is how long it's been since we've had it, but it used to be a weight loss success story page, and I personally decided to change that for our region at the very least. And it's now called Time to Transform, because as we were talking to readers and hearing more feedback from people out there, we realized that it's not, I don't want to just hear about people losing weight. It's very inspirational, and it's extremely hard to do that, so they deserve their time in the spotlight. But it is equally as hard to be a skinny girl who put on muscle, or maybe someone who had an extremely stressful lifestyle and now is sleeping better, or maybe improve their mental health, or maybe change their diet. You don't see any changes on the outside, but even inside you see that. And so it's something that we try and promote on a daily basis in the attitude and the language that we use. I mean, I remember, I think when we launched, because I launched the Middle East edition of Women's Health 4 years ago, so I think a lot of people at the time didn't know what the brand stood for, and we had posted something about Nutella on our Instagram page, and we received a lot of sort of negative comments about that, saying, why on earth are you putting a product that's so filled with sugar on the Women's Health page? This is irresponsible. And we just said, what you choose to put in your body, it's a question of educating yourself. I know a lot of personal trainers who are in great shape and very healthy, and they eat Nutella. Of course, they don't eat tubs of it all day, every day, but there's nothing wrong with having a slice of pizza once in a while. It's just a question of finding balance and what works for your body. And I think, sorry, I'm going on about this a little bit, but people always ask me what the best workout is and what the best thing to eat is. It depends on what works for your body, and that's exactly what we try and do in every page, to show people there isn't really a one-size-fits-all thing, at least not when it comes to men and women's health. We try to encourage people to educate and inform, and that's what we try and do in every page. Everything you read should be able to teach you something new, and we are what's classified as a sit-forward read, so every page that you read should be able to give, you should be able to take something away from it, whether that's inspiration, motivation, or learning something new, that you can then learn to understand your body a little better, and hopefully live a healthier lifestyle from that.
We have another question here to that.
Hi, you just mentioned the brand name, Nutella, and I had a short stint working in the magazine industry in a very different area. I worked for Jane's Information Group, and of course Jane's Defense Weekly is #1 globally in the defense industry as a magazine. But we had an issue inside the advertising side. I worked advertising, and that our advertisers would sometimes try to encroach into editorial. And we had a very strict policy that we kept those two areas quite separate. There was advertising and there was editorial. Do you run into that issue in your publications?
Yeah, I think, sorry, I'm just going to say, just carrying on from that. I mean, we do actually try and classify. We do keep it separate. And when there is an advertiser that would like to buy something that's more than just a basic ad, we do actually label it editorial or sponsored content for that very reason. We try to be transparent about that as much as possible, but logically it would make sense. If there's a brand that we work with on a regular basis that our readers would love, naturally they would want to advertise with us. So sometimes it works out very happily and comes hand in hand with no pressure.
I think the big thing that shows through is in sports clothing, when the guys are wearing a certain brand or whatever. You can't help that. Guys need to wear clothes, and sports clothing has branding on it. It doesn't mean that if a certain brand is in the mag, they're paid for that spot. You just can't do that. I'm standing here in trousers sponsored by. You can't monetize everything, and you can't delabel everything either. It's just not possible. We're conscious of it on covers particularly. We had an athlete last year who was photographed in sponsored clothing. The international brand guidelines are very strict on that, so we follow that. But no, as far as the mag content goes, there's no sponsored content in there that isn't labeled.
We have another question back here.
You mentioned that you always ask the people who want to be featured in covers about what makes them stand out. So I'm curious because I'm an aspiring journalist, I'm studying journalism myself. So what is it that you look for in these stories that make them cover worthy? Like, is there a hierarchy? Do you look for like people who found out innovative diets and exercise forms, or is it sort of combining ethics and maintaining a balance? What is it? What is that characteristic that you look for in your cover stories?
It's kind of a mental checklist that you go through, and you get a gut feeling for these things over time. Yes, all those things you mentioned. Yes, all of those things go into the mental mix, and you've also got to have an interesting story to tell. It just can't be I've lost a bunch of weight, and what are you doing with that knowledge that you've gained? Isa Ansari, one of our local Emirati guys, he lost 70 kilos and is now out inspiring young kids to eat well and exercise, and he goes around talking to schools. We featured him in the magazine. We didn't put him on the cover, not for any other reason than it just the images didn't quite fit. But his story is fascinating. He weighs less than me, and he used to weigh twice my weight. So this guy is super inspiring, and he's inspiring young kids to eat well. And so we talked about how he transformed his life and how he's helping to transform the lives of others. So yes, there are a lot of things that you need to tick off.
I know there's more questions, but I'm also very cognizant that some of you have to go to class, some of you have to go to work, some of you need to go work out. I'm also a little bit worried because I did ask you at the very start to put down what you really hate, and Jay has noticed that I don't like burpees, so I know where that's going. If you want to continue the conversation, these two fabulous people are not going anywhere quickly, and I encourage you to come and have a chat with them. I encourage you to follow up and grab these magazines, take a read, and keep thinking about these topics. We really do need to close down, though, for the day. And I want to thank you both for joining us, for being so candid, for walking us through how you do your job and where the magazine industry is going. And I think I have probably another 2 hours worth of questions in my head now. So, and I'm sure many of you do as well. Thank you all for coming. Creative Mornings doesn't happen without you. So please give yourselves a round of applause. Thanks to our speakers. And next month, on the 20th of April, I think we'll be back here. I'm hoping. Are we back here? Yes. Yes. Do you guys like it here? Again, a big thank you to Urban Bistro, a big thank you to Buy Media City for making this happen. Without Media City, we wouldn't be here. I'm just telling you. And honestly, wouldn't be here doing Creative Mornings. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Beyond is the theme next month. It could be very interesting. So Beyond is the theme. We'll be back here at Creative Mornings. Follow us online, sign up, keep in touch. Have a great week and a great month. See you next month. Thank you very much.